Welcome! In this video we're going to be going over the level 80 and 85 Lighture Gear sets, since we now have the full 6-piece sets in the game, as well as the rings now, and they have special bonuses depending on the gear set. We're going to be going over the 6-piece sets and some of the rings and necklaces and stuff and their unique attributes for each of the different classes, to see kind of which ones are going to be good for which Elunes or which ones might be better on others. So this way you can try to prioritize your sets if you don't have multiple sets of this to put on different Elunes. This way you can try to prioritize them better depending on what they do. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first set, which is the Tank Lighture set. The 3-piece bonus, which has already been around now for a while. This one is very good for any type of tank, so you're going to want to put this on basically every tank that you can get, at least the 3-piece set, as this protects them for 2 turns once their HP drops below 50%. It gives them that immunity and gives you time to heal them back up, so it's very difficult to kill them. Now they can still die through damage such as soul damage, but while this is active, any other direct damage, be magic or physical damage, will not affect them, and it'll just be 0. The 6-piece set for the tank set now, which is now complete with the addition of the rings, will give you 1 soul whenever the tank is hit by a crit. This is per skill, not per hit, so multiple hits don't give you multiple souls. It's based on per attack. So on this one you'll gain a soul if you're hit by a high crit, which is really good because crit rate is going to be what most of your DPSs are going to have, and even a lot of debuffers, they're going to have high crit rate for doing damage. So having this as an attribute, this will give your team more souls so that they can counteract any type of soul drains, or that they have more souls so they can use their skills. So this is a very good effect, and it is something that you can go for, especially on any of your primary tanks. Going over that now, let's take a look at the rings and necklaces, which have special bonuses. The necklace for the tank reflects 10% of damage taken. Now, yeah, you might recognize this from something like the Rachel passive, or even the Nassar passive. So some of the tanks already have kind of a built-in mechanic to reflect damage taken. This will stack with that damage reflection, so it'll be more damage that they can reflect. So this is good for anything like that. So this means that they can reflect some of the damage, which just means that the enemy team does take some of the damage that they deal out. So if they're doing large nuking type damage to even tanks or something, that 10% is reflected back to that nuker, which means that can hurt them a lot of their HP, especially if they were doing high damage. It can chunk them down a little bit, especially if they're doing AoE damage. It can hurt them by them taking damage themselves. The ring now, this one is very good, especially for a lot of the primary tanks that you're going to be using. This provokes the attacker for 1 turn whenever yourself or any ally is hit by a crit. This is really good, and if you go with the 6-piece set of this, it's basically you're getting 2 benefits if the tank is hit by a crit. 1, you're getting a soul, 2, you're getting a provoke. Now the provoke is nice, especially for some tanks, because there are several of the tanks that don't have any type of control skills, don't have any type of skill like a provoke or a confuse or anything that can, kind of control the enemy team in any way, or to direct the damage to them or off of your allies. So having this is basically allows all tanks to tank. So if the enemy has a DPS or anything, whatever they have, and it attacks and it does a critical hit on any of your allies, including yourself, they will get provoked to this tank for 1 turn. This also includes such things as Artemiel on a revenge. So if Artemiel does his judge passive and revenges on to one of your allies when they're attacked, if the Artemiel crits on one of those hits, on any of the hits, then that counts, and he will be debuffed with a provoke. So the next time that the Artemiel moves, he'll be provoked to attack your tank. Now, a tank that really benefits from this is Mei, because Mei has that evasion built in, which can also deter them too. So it's kind of like a two-part thing for Mei. One, she can provoke if any ally is attacked. So if people are avoiding hitting Mei because of her passive of Confuse, then if they attack somebody else and they crit, then they're forced to target Mei, and then if they target Mei, then they get confused if they evade. So it's very helpful to her because not only does she force people to target her, but it also then confuses them when they attack her on their next turn. So this is a very beneficial thing to her. This is a good thing for a lot of stuff. Now, in some cases, it may not be as good as others, but for every case for your tank stuff that you're going to want to do on your tanks, you're going to want this ring on your tanks just because of this provoke. This is just an extra way for the tank to direct the damage to them, which is what you want, which is why they're there. Alright, let's move on. DPS Lighture Set now. The DPS Lighture Set, the 3-piece set, which has been around for a while, gives a buff for 1 turn of attack and crit rate for 20% when attacking. This effect takes over after your first attack. So whenever you attack once, you don't have the effect, but after that you have it for 1 turn. So on your next turn you have a bonus 20% crit rate, 20% attack, so you can do even more damage on your second attack. The cooldown is 2 turns, which means you won't have it every turn. It'll have to be every few turns. So, because once it goes on to cooldown, you still need to attack, and then that'll trigger it back on again. But that's a good thing. The 6-piece set of this one now reduces soul consumption of skills by 1 for 1 turn when defeating an enemy with a direct attack. Now, this effect is nice, but it's not, in most cases, it's not going to be a clutch thing, or it's not going to give you a victory, or it's not going to do anything just totally amazing. The reducing the soul consumption by 1 is nice, but you have to defeat an enemy with a direct attack. So it can't count as like you put a soul effect, or you put a bleed, or you put some type of soul damage on them that ticks away on their turn and then they die to it. That won't count. It has to be you hit them on an attack, either with an AoE and somebody dies in the AoE or what. It has to be with you doing a direct attack. So if that's the case, then you get that, and then it's 1 soul for 1 turn. So it's not too crazy. And so the necklace now on this one increases damage by 10% if you attack an enemy with a buff. This is nice because it's any buff, and most enemies are going to have buffs, so you just increase your damage to them, especially things like Wei they're going to have on the enemy teams. A lot of times they're going to have those buffs, so this just increases the damage. This just means you hit a little bit harder whenever you attack, which is always nice. The ring for this one is the ultimate skill never misses when your soul is 10 or more. Now, this for most situations, this isn't going to be too amazing. It's not going to be, very great or anything, because most of the time missing with an ultimate skill is not something you're going to be too concerned with. It's just going to be, okay, I missed with it. Not likely going to happen unless maybe you're attacking an evasion unit. So things like this would be good if you have it where it's something that you definitely want to make sure that it lands, and that's like on a Congram where he's doing his instant kill skill. You don't want to use that on something and then it gets evaded and then he doesn't kill him, and now you've got to wait for the cooldown for it to come back before you can use it again. So for like a Congram it would be great, but Congram is a debuffer, so you can't use it on him. So like that's a situation where it would be good for him, but this is a DPS, which means it's class specific and he can't use it. So who would benefit from this as a DPS that's really good? Well, any DPS basically that has an ultimate skill that can target any enemy on the field. So whether it be an AoE attack, which is great, or just a single target attack that can attack anything, not just front line. And the reason you'd want that to be able to target anything besides the front line and not miss is mainly for dealing with some of the Reapers out there. And you can take advantage of this to do this. So take, for example, you have a DPS Elune that has a skill, an ultimate skill that can attack a backline enemy, and you use it to attack a Reaper. If it never misses, you'll hit the Reaper. Even though the Reaper is in the back line and protected by its passive, normally that will always work. But in the case of this, the ring takes precedence over the Reaper passive, and you will hit the Reaper and you will do damage to it. And most Reapers are pretty squishy, so you should be able to kill it with this skill. So that's very good, because you can attack the Reaper with this skill as long as you have 10 souls or more. You will do damage to it, so that's good. So what kind of DPSs might have something like that? Well, one of the best ones that most people are going to have is Chloe Van. Chloe Van can attack backline targets with her ultimate skill, and she can nuke them down that way. So it's very good for a Chloe because she can do a single nuke as long as you have 10 souls. So she can nuke down a Reaper pretty quickly with that magic damage and just knock her out. That's going to be one that most people should have built and most people will be able to use to kill her with. So that's something to keep in mind. Now there are some other DPS Elunes, even epics and stuff too, that can do that. So it's something to keep in mind. Balder is another one that has a ultimate skill that can target backlines too. So it's something to keep in mind. You can use him to target a backline. Others, like McCarthy, has an AoE ultimate skill that can target anything. So he's another one. But McCarthy is debuffer, so forget him. But DPS classes. So let's see. Reeve is another one that can do it. She kind of like Balder, except she has an AoE ultimate, so she can do it. So there are some other epics and stuff that can do it too. So just look for anything on the ultimate skill where it's all enemies or any enemy or any target, and that's what you're going to look for, and this is going to help you kill those Reapers. Just by putting this ring on, you don't even need the set effects. All you need is the ring. You don't need any of the other gear. Alright, let's move on to the healer now. The healer Lighture Gear Set now. The 3-piece bonus, which we've had, is after the HP of a target that is directly healed reaches max HP, it heals that target by 30% of excess healing when target is hit. It's just a way to kind of passively heal targets by having extra healing. So that's always just nice to have, especially if you have a really strong healer like a Freya healing everybody anyway and throwing up shields. This means whenever they get hit, they're just going to get a nice little heal passive, plus they're going to get the one from her too, and it stacks with that. Plus it puts this neat little deep, buff icon above them, so it looks nice too. The 6-piece set of this one, gain 2 souls when the HP of an ally is restored by 2 times the caster's max HP through direct healing. Excludes the amount of excess healing. So this is okay, but it's not great. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I need a 6-piece set for this. You really don't need that. It's 2 souls, which is nice, but it's not going to happen probably very often, so I wouldn't worry about it too much unless you have very strong healers that have attack buffs to get those really strong heals on. So otherwise I wouldn't worry about it for the most part. Let's take a look now. The necklace, this one increases healing amount of healing skills by 10%. Always great. Get this, put it on your healers. It's amazing. Makes them heal even better because it's all healing skills. Next one, the ring now. The ring, this is a good option to have too, but you need to be careful with it. The 25% chance of casting damage immunity on any target for 1 turn when healing skill lands as a crit on that target. This is great for PvP because it can provide a damage immunity to an ally if you crit. So you're going to want to skill gem set those extra crit chances and stuff on your healers. So all those healers that you have that have the skill gem sets that say, hey, add 5% or 3% extra crit on this skill, to this heal if you, gem it right. you'd want to gem it that way so you can have that extra chance of critting, so you can have that. Also bringing in something like a Karu in there to buff crit rate for everybody, that just means that you're going to be, with AoE healers, you're going to be crit healing everybody and constantly putting up damage immunity all the time, especially if you're running with passive healers or something like a Freya that can crit passively all the time too. Great option here. It's a 25% chance if it crits, but with AoE healers, high crit rate, you should be landing it pretty often, and that's a pretty decent thing to have. Plus, this damage immunity can sometimes come in clutch for protecting an ally before it dies. Alright, moving on to the supports now. The support set, the 3-piece set, attack speed increased by 100% for every even numbered turn for 1 turn when gaining a buff. So as long as they're buffing, then they can be increasing their attack speed, which gives them another turn pretty quickly because they get 100% extra speed every even numbered turn when they buff. This is pretty nice. But it's been there for a while. Now the 6-piece set though, this is a 50% chance of gaining 2 souls for every 12 buffs placed using direct skills. This is nice. It's only a 50% chance to gain the 2 souls. 100% for 1 soul would be nice, but 50% for 2 souls isn't bad, especially on supports that constantly buff all the time, like Wei Wei. Wei Wei is basically just buffing constantly with her special and ultimate skill. She's constantly buffing, and if you have a full team of 5, she's going to be buffing 5 with 5 buff special skill, 5 buffs ultimate skill, 5 buff special skill, 5 buffs ultimate skills constantly. So she's going to be having the 12 buffs are going to be very fast with her. Somebody else that really benefits from it too is like a Karu that buffs multiple buffs at the same time. Then you also have things like the Majed that also can buff multiple buffs, or they can spam a special skill that does multiple buffs at the same time. Even there are some epic grade Elunes that are going to be really nice on this for getting souls with. Like Gaian is going to be really good because he has AoE buffs, plus he has a skill 2 that gives buffs, plus has a chance to proc 2 more additional buffs. So he can give buffs like crazy and be able to cycle up those souls a little bit better for you. So there's multiple options, not just legendary, but also epic grade buffers too. Like even Miho would be a great option for a epic grade buffer that's just constantly buffing, because she can buff so much so often with her multiple buffs that she's going to be, plus just her buffs gain souls anyway, just the way her passives work and buffs work anyway. Miho is going to be just like a soul magnet for your team with a support set, and with the buffs and the way her passives work. She's just going to be giving your team souls constantly that way. So let's take a look at the necklace now. This one, when using a direct skill to grant a buff, a barrier, a safeguard, or anything to an ally except yourself, it's a 20% chance of gaining the same effect with a duration extended by 1. So basically, if you buff, with anything, like if you buff, say, with Wei Wei or whatever, and it's buffing up, then you have a chance of getting that same buff, which you're getting anyway because it's an AoE, but you have a chance of getting a 20% chance of gaining it with 1 extra turn extended on it. So it's nice, especially for some, like a Majed that can buff with her skill 2, but that buffs another target. So like if you're buffing one of your DPSs or something to keep them alive, or to make sure they do more damage, take less damage, that type of stuff, it's a single target buff, but you have a 20% chance every time you use it of getting that same buff on herself, which also reduces the damage she takes. So in those cases, it's going to be pretty nice. It's the same thing good with, say, Epic with Gaian, again, as another example, because he has a skill 2 that buffs the other side, but he also can get a chance to get that buff himself, with his passive. This is similar to his passive, but it's for any support that buffs. So any support that does single target buffs or anything, this is going to be great for them, because it's a chance that they can get the same buff that they're giving to an ally, but AoE buffs also are included. So just as long as you don't buff yourself with a single target buff, then it won't matter. Alright, the ring effect on this one now. This is going to be really nice, and we're going to get more about it when we get to the debuffer one too, because it's the direct opposite. But the support one now, this is a 15% chance of rendering buffs irremovable for any ally for 1 turn when placing buffs. What this means is whenever you buff with, say, like a Weiwei, and a Weiwei, so let's say the Weiwei has a full support set on her, and you buff with the Weiwei, there's a 15% chance she's going to get a soul effect. That soul effect is going to only be for 1 turn of the ally or whatever. It's only going to be for 1 turn, but during that turn, those buffs cannot be removed at all. They can't be stripped at all. Like you can't have Artemil strip it with his skill 1. You can't have Trent even use his effect, which strips all buffs, and remove it. It won't remove it. It will stay there. All your buffs will stay there on any ally that has this little icon that protects their buffs. Even the Trent full cleanse will not remove that buff. Your ally will keep that buff. So it's guaranteed to have that buff, which is really nice. It's a good thing to have. It's only a 15% chance, because it's such an OP type thing to make your buffs can't be stripped. It's only a 15% chance, but it still is very nice to have, and it can mean in certain situations you don't get a buff stripped when they're trying to strip your buffs. Like if they're trying to strip a Weiwei, buff that, reduces the damage, and you have this, they can't strip it off, which means you still have it, so it can reduce the damage of, say, like their nukers. So in a lot of cases you'll have enemy teams in air battles or something where they'll have a Trent move first to cleanse all buffs, and then you'll have like a Weiwei buff attack, and then maybe like a Arslan go in for a nuke, like an AoE nuke. But if you have this and you move first with your Weiwei or something, and it buffs up the Weiwei defense buffs, for defense, higher defenses and stuff, and you buff, and then it procs this, then that Trent isn't removing anything from you. So it's really nice to have, but it's only 15% chance, so it's not going to happen all the time, but it will happen. You will notice it, and it is pretty nice, and it is an icon to look for, so you will see it on enemies or allies that have this. Moving on to the debuffer now. The debuffer set is a 3-piece set, 75% chance of disrupting tolerance stack when inflicting a debuff. This is really nice because they are debuffers, so if you can disrupt that tolerance, from stacking up when you're doing it, that's good. Now you have a 75% chance of doing it, which is pretty decent chance, so most of the time you should interrupt that stack, but sometimes you might not, and then they gain a stack of tolerance to it. Just means that you need more accuracy to kind of compensate. The 6-piece set, though, is to gain 2 souls for every 12 debuffs placed using direct skills. Now some debuffers are going to this is going to be just amazing for them, but this is not a chance, kind of like the other one where it's a chance to gain 2 souls for every buffs placed. Like the support one is a 50% chance of gaining 2 souls for every 12 buffs placed. This is 2 souls for every 12 buffs placed, debuffs placed. So you're going to get 2 souls. Now some debuffers are really going to take advantage of this, others not so much. Who's going to take advantage of, or who won't take advantage of this? Kongrim. He's a debuffer, but he's not going to take advantage of this at all. He basically has 1 debuff, and that's on his special skill, and it just applies to 1 target, and that's all you're going to be targeting with him at a time anyway. So it's not going to be like that part for Kongrim, worthless. But who would it benefit? Well, basically any other debuffer that's AoE, like McCarthy. McCarthy is excellent for this. Great. Alvida, great unit, because they have 2 AoEs that are constant debuffing. McCarthy has a debuff as a passive, so every time he attacks, even with a skill 1, he's going to be debuffing. That's amazing. So for like with him, it's great. 2 AoEs that debuff, a normal attack that debuffs. You have Elvita, 2 AoEs that debuff. Great for them. You also have the new one, Rita, the new one, AoE, 3 AoEs, constantly debuffs. Debuffs on a passive. Constant debuff. She can place 2 debuffs, you know, per enemy every turn. So she's constantly going to be debuffing the enemy, which means you're constantly going to be gaining souls with those Elunes. So this is great for gaining souls if you're using debuffers that do, especially that do AoE debuffs like those 3. Going to be great for them. Use them. Also, other things that can benefit from it too. Nika is going to be really great with this because Nika just doesn't do stun. She has her skill 3, which just does debuffs, which is amazing. So that one's really nice to have too. And then even some epics that do debuffs too are going to be really nice for them. So anything that does debuffs, especially AoE, is going to really benefit from the 6-piece set on this one. Now, the necklace for the debuffer one, when inflicting a debuff on an enemy using a direct skill, there's a 50% chance of inflicting a bonus debuff on a different enemy, and it's not affected by resistance. So the resistance check doesn't matter. You have a 50-50 chance of it hitting a bonus debuff on a different enemy. So if you're attacking a single target, you have a 50-50, and you land the debuff on a single target, you have a 50-50 chance of landing the debuff on another enemy without any type of resistance check. That is great for debuffers. So like with Congram, it's really nice because you can land that on another debuffer. So like if you're using a Congram special skill and you're hitting one person with it, say like you're trying to, you know, seal up an Artemil because you want to kill it, so you're trying to seal it up and you land the seal on the Artemil. Well, you have a 50-50 chance of some other enemy team member also getting that same seal, which is just really nice, which means you're sealing 2 enemies with them, which is really nice. It's a 50-50 chance, but hey, that's really nice. Other things that's really good for this is whenever you use AoE debuffers and stuff, and if you miss when a debuff on one, then you have a 50-50 chance of it still landing on them without checking resistance. These debuffs also apply to the skill gem set effects. So if it's a skill 1 and you don't have any debuff, the debuffer, let's say, doesn't have any debuffs with a passive or anything with skill 1, but their skill gem set effect has like a minor chance to stun or paralyze or seal or something, and then they use that and they land that, then that target gets that plus another target gets it also. So who is that good for? Take for example the new Rita. Rita has an AoE attack on her skill 1 with a low chance to paralyze. You throw this necklace on a Rita, she now has a chance to paralyze, and if she does, 2 things are getting paralyzed. Like period. At least 2 things are getting paralyzed. And it really does work because you can paralyze a lot of stuff all the time with a Rita just from this necklace. Now the ring. The ring now on this one is basically the direct opposite of the support ring. This is a 15% chance of making debuffs irremovable for any target when placing buffs. Now this is really good again because it doesn't, you can't remove them. If this lands, that debuff can't be removed. And this so far from what I've tested applies to any situation. It applies to the Trent cleanse, skill 3 cleanse, which removes all buffs and debuffs. If they have this soul effect procced on them from this ring, then it can't be removed. Even through Trent's ultimate skill, it can't be removed. It's going to stay there, which is really nice. Other thing, you have May, which cleanses whoever she's protecting every time May gets a turn. If they're debuffed with this and have this on them, when May gets a turn and the thing that she's protecting has this, she won't cleanse them at all, which means it stays on them. Another thing is McCarthy. McCarthy, whenever you kill a McCarthy, he auto cleanses all debuffs and everything, and then he has 2 turns where he can attack you. If this is on him when he is killed and procs his passive, those buffs stay. And even though he gets another turn, so that turn that he should have gotten then, he doesn't get. Like if he's CC'd, then he doesn't get a turn. He doesn't get that instant turn and cleanse. He gets the turn instantly, but he's not cleansed. Which means if it was only a 1-turn CC on him, then he gets another turn still where he can do his attacks. But if it's like a 2-turn or a 3-turn debuff, and this is on him for 1 turn, and you proc his passive, he'll get the turn, but he'll stay CC'd because it couldn't remove it from his passive from him dying. It won't remove it, which means he dies, he procs the turn, this effect now goes away, but he's still CC'd on his next turn too, which means he doesn't do anything on that turn, and then he just dies. So he can die without ever getting any attacks off if this is on him when he dies. So if you have, for example, again, the Rita, and the Rita applies a 3-turn freeze effect to him, and that ends up killing him during that 3-turn freeze effect, and he dies with that 3-turn freeze effect on him, but this is on him too, this effect, then he will die. He will instantly get a turn. It'll go down to 2 turns left on the freeze effect. He'll get another turn from the passive instantly, which takes it down to a 1 turn, but then he dies anyway because of his passive instant killing him after that. So basically you killed him and he didn't get a chance to do anything back to you, all because of this having that 1 turn on him. When he died, he couldn't remove the buffs, the debuffs. So it applies to basically everything, including other cleansers and stuff too, like Leskar, Epic Cleanser 2, one of the best ones before kind of Trent came along. He was the best AoE cleanser. So Leskar, same thing, can't cleanse the effects away. If this is on them, it doesn't get cleansed, it stays on them. Basically there's no way to cleanse those effects if this is on, which again is why this effect and the support effect are so strong, because there's just no way to get rid of them. No matter what you do, there's no way to strip them on the supports, and there's no way to cleanse them on the debuffs, so it's good that it's only a 15% chance, but if you're doing it with an AoE, you have that chance to happen very often. So if you're using AoEs like Mikazuki or Rita doing AoE debuffs, or even other debuffs like Alvida or Nika or any AoE debuffer, you want to put this ring on them so that those debuffs don't get removed by anything. So it's just something else to keep in mind for it, but it's just another really nice thing. And I have tested all the stuff that I told you how it works. I have tested those, so I can confirm that that is how they do work, and that is what happens. So I've been spending quite a bit of time in the mock battle and air battles over the weekend, since I can't be attacked on my defense there. So I've been changing it around and manipulating it around and trying different attack teams and defense teams, trying it different ways to see what happens in different situations, and I was able to test every one of these. Some of them took quite a while to be able to get to land the way I wanted them to, but I was able to test all of these things. That's how come I can tell you that that's how they work. So I thought I would let people know, because some people might have been in a situation where something happens and they're confused about why something is happening a certain way. Like if you're in an air battle and you're fighting a team, and every time you go to hit them, all of a sudden you're somehow getting provoked, and you're like, well, why did I get provoked? There's nothing over there. They have nothing to provoke me. How am I getting provoked? Did they change air battles? No, it's just the tank ring. If they had a tank that has that ring, you're going to be getting provoked onto them. It's not some new skill or new buff or anything. It's just that ring. So it's something to happen. It's the same thing with the debuffer ring. If you did it, if you got debuffed, but you're like, I got my Trent, I'll cleanse myself, I'll be fine. And then you go to cleanse yourself and it doesn't get cleansed, and you're like, well, why didn't it cleanse? It, it did everybody else. That's why. It's because if they have that effect on them, it won't be cleansed at all. So there might have been some people getting confused by some of the recent changes, especially because of these rings adding all these really cool type of effects and stuff. But some stuff I wanted to let people know because it does give them more options for killing Reapers now, like with the DPS ring. Now they have more options to kill a Reaper with, because if you have 10 souls and you have a DPS that can attack any target, then you can attack and kill that Reaper even without having to kill all the tanks in the front line first. And that can just open up a lot more possibilities for what to use to counter Reaper with, so that you can build your teams, just various ways, and you're not locked into just a specific meta, because you do have an option to go with something else now to use. So it does open them up some other doors for team building and stuff too now, because any DPS that can target a backline with an ultimate has the potential now to kill a Reaper, because most of them are going to be pretty squishy, because nobody ever worries about making them tanky, because you can't target them unless everything in the front dies, and usually they're the only thing in the back, so you got to kill 4 other things before you kill them. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one on the gear. If you have any questions or comments or anything about the gear, or anything else you want me to test on it, any other effects you want me to test or go over if I've tested it, because a lot of stuff I have, let me know and I'll try to do it or respond to you with what I know. And if I don't know, I'll let you know and I'll get back to you and I'll test it and see what happens and see if we can figure it out. So anyway, that's it for this one. Let me know, and y'all have a good one.